Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and this is a tutorial on sorting lists in Java. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to sort lists using comparators, and I'm going to start here. I'm in Eclipse, I've got my main method set up, and I'm going to start by creating a list of strings, and I'm going to call this animals because this is going to be a list of animal names, and I'll set that equal to a new array list of strings. So the stuff I'm about to show you works equally well for any kind of list, but I'm going to use the simplest case here, array list. So let's add some animal names to this list. So I'll start with cat, and let's copy that. There is actually a shortcut in Eclipse for duplicating lines, but unfortunately it seems to conflict with another shortcut on my system, so I can't use it. And we'll add here elephant, tiger, let's have lion, snake, and mongoose. Now if I want to sort this list in alphabetical order, I can use a static method of the collections class called sort. So I'll say collections.sort, and I'll pass in my list of animals here like this, and then let's just display the list. I'll say for string animal in animals, and sysout animal, and let's run that. So now my animals are sorted in alphabetical order, and let's just to make that a bit clearer, let's make the order a bit less like alphabetical order to start with. Put the elephant at the end there, and let's run that, and there we go. Now supposing I want to sort a list of integers, for example, or doubles. It's going to be basically exactly the same, but I'll show you here because I want to demonstrate something with this a bit later on. Let's try integers. I'll say numbers equals new array list integer, and I'll say numbers dot add, and let's add some random numbers in here in a random order. So I'll have 3, 1, 36, 73, and 40. So in no particular order, and let's mix up even a bit more and put 1 at the end here. So it's exactly the same to sort that. I just say collections.sort numbers, and if I then output these numbers for integer number in numbers and sysout number, and that's going to sort in numerical order. There we go, 1, 3, 36, 40, 73. Now the order that this is actually sorting in is called natural order, and we're going to look at natural order in the next tutorial. And in fact natural order is also the order that treeset sorts in, and it's the order that treemap sorts its keys in as well. But supposing you want to sort your list in something other than natural order, to do that you need to create a class that implements the comparator interface. So let's suppose I want to create a comparator that can sort my animals in order of string length. So I'll say class, let's call it string length comparator, and I'll say implements comparator, and comparator is a template type, so I'm going to put in here the type of thing that I want to sort, which is string. and let's add the import, and then I can click on this and go to add unimplemented methods, and comparator just has one method which is called compare, and the idea is, let's call that S1 and S2. Compare is going to be supplied with the objects in your list two at a time, and it has to say which one is greater in each case. And the way it does that is if S1, if the first argument here is equal to the second argument, it should return 0. If S1 is greater than S2, in other words, if the first argument should sort later in the list than the second one, it should return 1. And if the first argument here is less than the second argument, in other words, if it should sort earlier in the list, then you should return -1. So let's do that. Let's get the lengths of these strings. So I'll say int len1 equals s1.length, and int len2 equals s2.length. And I'll say if len1 is greater than len2, then we want len1 to sort further up in the list, so I'll return 1. Else, if len1 is less than len2, I'm going to return -1. So for greater you return a positive, and for less than, if this is less than this, you return a negative value. And if neither of those cases occur, I'm just going to return 0 down here. Now to use that comparator, I just have to supply an instance of it to my sort here. So when I sort the animals, I can just say new string length comparator, string length comparator, like this. So I'm just creating a new instance of the string length comparator and passing it to collections.sort here. And if I run that now, let's have a look. We can see that my strings are sorted in order of the length of the string. Now supposing you want to sort in reverse alphabetical order, that's a little bit more complex. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to sort firstly in alphabetical order. So let's call this alphabetical comparator. Now the thing is, how can I compare two strings? Because I want to say if one string is alphabetically higher than another string, I want to return +1. And actually the way to do that is I can use a method of strings called compareTo. So to sort alphabetically, I could in fact just say return s1.compareTo s2, and compareTo is a method of the comparable interface that we're going to be looking at in the next tutorial. So this is really what defines natural order, and let's use that. So I'll sort my animals here. Let's comment this out. So I'm going to put this code on caveofprogramming.com so you can look at it if you want to. And let's supply here the alphabetical comparator. And if I run that, my animals are going to be in alphabetical order again. And to make it reverse alphabetical order, well, let's change the name of this class to reverse alphabetical comparator. Bit of a mouthful. So I'll change this here. All you have to do is, so at the moment this method is returning +1 if S1 is greater than S2. In other words, if it sorts alphabetically later than S2. And it returns -1 if S1 is less than S2. And it returns 0 if they're equal. So to sort in reverse alphabetical order, all I have to do is switch the sign on this return value. So I can just say here negative, and if I run that, I'm going to get my strings sorting in reverse alphabetical order. Now there's one last thing that I want to show you here. If you want to sort integers, for example, then you can use this kind of technique here. It's going to be pretty simple to extrapolate from this, I think. But let's take a look at sorting integers, because I just want to show you that you don't have to go to the trouble of creating a whole separate class here. You can just use an anonymous class. So here, when I sort my numbers, I could just say new comparator, and in the angle brackets here I'll put integer because I'm sorting integers, and then round brackets, this is just as if I'm creating a new object of a class, but then I open a curly bracket, and there's the closing curly bracket Eclipse has put in for me, and I implement the missing method here, the compare method. And let's sort these numbers in reverse numerical order. So I could use the compare method of the numbers themselves, which is probably simplest. So I could say return, and let's call this num1 and num2, and I can say return num1.compare to num2, and then just put the negative sign in there. And of course, if I wanted to write this in a longer way, I could say if num1 is greater than num2, return, it would be -1 in this case, and so on. I could write it out kind of in full like this, but it's quicker to use the compare to method that's already built in. And if I run that, I've got my numbers sorting in reverse numerical order. Now you can use this with your own classes very, very easily, and in fact I'll show you quickly here an example of using it with your own class, and if you feel you've got the idea by now, then of course you can skip the rest of this tutorial, because what I'm going to show you now is really just building on what we've already seen. So let's have a comment here, sorting strings, and let's copy that and go down here, and I'll put a comment in saying sorting numbers. And now after this I'll show you sorting arbitrary classes, or I should say objects, really, objects. So let's create up here some kind of object that I want to sort. So I'll say class, let's make it I don't know, person, and let's give person a public, well, we'll give person a private int ID and a private string name. Define a constructor, public person, which takes an int ID and a string name, and let's just say this dot ID equals ID and this dot name equals name, and I'll define get and set methods for these values. Actually, let's go to, I'll right click and go to source, generate getters and setters here, click ID and name, and I'm also going to just create a toString method, so public string toString, and that's going to just return ID is actually let's sort these people in order of their name. So I'll just return the name to keep things simple here. Now I'm going to create an array list of people here. So let's say list person, and I'll call that people equals new array list of person objects, like this. And I can define people and add them to my list most succinctly just by doing add, and in here I can just say new person. I could define the person object separately with a variable and pass it in, but I'll just do this instead. And I'm going to give this an ID, like 1, and a name, Joe. And let's add in a few more people here. So we'll have 1, 2, and 3, so 4 people. And let's give these IDs 2, 3, 4, and let's have a couple of girls and a couple of guys, Bob. And let's just mix the order of these up a bit. And if I want to sort these people, so very, very simple. Firstly, I'll output them so we can see what order they're in to start with, and they're going to be in a random order. Actually, not going to be. To start with, they're going to be in the order that I've added them to the array list, of course. So let's say person, person in people, and let's just do sysout person. And if I run this, we're going to have Joe, Bob, Claire, Sue, because that's the order that I added them in. And now let's sort them. So if I say collections.sort people, now this is going to have this is not going to work, because we're going to look at this in the next tutorial, but collections.sort by itself won't work, because the person object, as I defined it, doesn't have any natural order. It doesn't implement the comparable interface. So to sort it, I've got to supply a comparator. So I'll say here, new comparator, and I'll use just an anonymous class, just to keep things here all in one place. And a comparator is going to sort person objects. And I need to implement the compare method here. And in here, I just need to do the same thing that I did before. If two people are equal, let's call them P1 and P2, I need to return naught. If the first person supplied here is greater than this one, I need to return 1. And if P1 is less than P2, return -1. So I can decide here how to sort them. And for example, let's supposing I want to sort them in order of ID. I could wrap my ID in an integer and use the compare2 method, or I could just explicitly write out an if then else thing here. So I could say if p1.get ID is greater than p2.get ID, then return 1. So I'm sorting in order of ID here. Else if p1.get ID is less than p2.get ID, then return -1. Otherwise return 0. I could put an else in here, but because this is going to happen anyway, if neither of these have happened, the else will be a bit superfluous. So if I run that, it's going to sort in order of ID, which you can't see because I've not added ID to string. Let's add it in. So plus ID plus name. And if I run that now, we can see we've got them sorted in order of ID there. And of course I could equally well sort them in alphabetical order of name. So I could say this is sort in order of ID, and let's sort in order of name as well. So here, sort in order of name. And to do that, I would just say very simply, I could use a string comparator, and I could say return p1.get name dot compare to p2 dot get name. And if I run that, so my second lot of people here are going to be sorted in order, an alphabetical order of name. Let's just, before I finish here, let's just do a sysout here, just to put some, let's have a extra \n in there, just to put some space. So my second lot of people sorted in order of name there. Okay, so I think that's quite enough for this tutorial. And in the next tutorial, we're going to look at natural ordering, and you'll see that natural ordering is very simple and just involves implementing the comparable interface, but I'll leave that for next time, and this code will be on caveofprogramming.com. And until next time, happy coding.